What's up guys and welcome back. I hope you guys all had a really good time over the Christmas holidays and that you had a really good new year. I guess it doesn't really feel like a new year because I think most of us are still experiencing the residual effects or just even the current effects of coronavirus. But nevertheless, it is 2021. So I'm going to be continuing on with my videos of reviewing my reading goals. Today's video is just going to be about, I think I'm going to smush a bunch of goals together that I haven't met. So for this one I'm going to be talking about my read more self-help books goal. This was the first time I set myself this goal, so I don't have like a year-on-year comparison as I have done for like science fiction and poetry. But needless to say, the achievement of this goal wasn't as great as the other ones, but we'll just walk you through this. In 2020, I ended up reading 95 books. That is 20 books up from what I read in 2019. Out of these 95 books, 5 of those books were self-help books. So that means 5% of my reading has been made up of self-help books, and that's 5% of my reading has like sort of met this goal. I think it's probably important for me to talk about why I set myself the goal of reading more self-help books, and probably also talk about why I guess I actually didn't really end up meeting it. So I set myself that goal because towards the end of 2019, obviously, I was struggling a bit with my mental health. There was a lot going on, and I'd really found self-help books really helpful in the past. So I thought, let me just sort of let me find some more to read. I don't tend to normally gravitate towards self-help books because I feel like once you've read like a couple, okay, more than a couple months, you've read about 5 to 10, in a way you kind of read them all. But I was willing to give some of the new books that I'd seen out a try. And I guess really the reason why I didn't meet the goal is because I kind of find self-help books quite irritating. Like, you know, like I said, I feel like once you've read them all. And I know obviously there's actually power in actually reading a range of self-help books, because what one person says might not speak to you, but another person might say in a different way and it speaks to you. So I do kind of get why there are so many self-help books, and I think there's power in other people telling the same stories, but sometimes it's a bit jarring. So yeah, I mean, I set myself a goal and I really wanted to like work towards it, but in the end I've just sought other ways to sort of help with my mental health, as in like actual support from like doctors and stuff like that, and also just doing other things, like simple things like painting. I'm not good at painting, but it's just one of those things that you can do to calm your mind, and I listen to audiobooks when I'm doing that, playing The Sims, writing, watching YouTube videos. So I feel like and like YouTube videos is anything from booktube to fashion and beauty to also some sort of personal development stuff. So I feel like that's how I've kind of supplemented that in a way. And yeah, I just haven't really naturally gravitated towards picking up self-help books, because actually I have been seeking help in other avenues. With that said, I would still like to read perhaps some more self-help books, and I will be reading some this year that deal with specifically with some issues that I'm facing. I won't be marking them on Goodreads because I feel like they're kind of personal, and I just kind of don't want that out there at the moment. But I did, when I went back to London, I can't remember if it was October, September in 2020, but anyway, when I went back there, I also ended up picking up 2 self-help books that I have read in the past and really enjoyed. So that is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel something, and then The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I think it's one of his books. I feel like it is. But anyway, they're in the other room. I just can't be bothered to get them. But anyway, now I'm going to talk to you about the 5 books that I read, sort of my self-help books, and give you my thoughts on them. The first book is a book that I read way at the beginning of 2020, and that is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was so insightful into giving me information about sleep hygiene and how much sleep plays a part in your day-to-day, in your mood, in your diet, and just so many things, like how vital it is. Like, you know, I always hear people say you have to sleep 8 hours a day, but it's like, why? Like, do you actually really need 8 hours of sleep? Like, I'd rather stay up on the internet all night and things like that. But my god, this book taught me really to value sleep. And you know, after a while after reading it, I really was making a conscious effort. But I do suffer with insomnia, so I found it quite hard, if I'm honest. But I did trying to get into a routine and stuff like that, and going to work, and obviously like then the pandemic hit, and then obviously like my job ended anyway. But actually since then I am on medication that helps me sort of sleep anyway, so didn't really help me that much, but it was really insightful for sleep hygiene. And it was also just really insightful in terms of like placing sleep in a wider context and how it affects society. 2 things that I specifically remember from it is talking about the sort of circadian rhythm in like all of us, but also in teenagers, and how actually schools are really set up to help to help kids fail. That's not the term I'm looking for, but really set up to fail kids in the sense that their circadian rhythm shifts, and therefore those early wake up times aren't really good for them, and it takes them quite a while to adjust to that and adjust to society's expectation. And the same goes for if you're working, like, you know, in a full-time job in a society where you have to get up at 9 a.m. If naturally you are not the kind of person that's an early morning person, I think he even said it was like literally like 2% of the population is like can function like that, then you will really struggle. So it was really helpful finding out these things and just thinking like, thank God it's not just me, like I'm not just a lazy person, which is quite a shocking and sad thing to find out, actually, because if that's the case, and you know there are studies about it, then it's really wild that, you know, we just let capitalism dictate the fact that we have to get up at like 8 a.m. and if not, then you're a really lazy person if you can't get into that mindset constantly. And then the second thing was to do about sleep and sort of how, you know, sleep is that important that, you know, it is used as a form of torture, you know, in Guantanamo Bay and all these other places, because of how important sleep is to your body and how, you know, without it, how it can drive you crazy a little bit. So I found it very interesting for that. It has so many chapters covering so many things. I actually listened to this as an audiobook from Audible. I think I had like a free credit or something like that. But I would really encourage everyone to read that book, just simply because I feel like we all know that we should sleep, but if you don't know why you should sleep and like how important different stages of sleep are. Like, I knew about the different stages of sleep because I have a Fitbit and it talks you through those bits, but actually what I found quite insightful in the book was kind of why, like, you know, it's good to get a deep sleep and what REM and things like that. I mean, because on the Fitbit it kind of tells you, but you're just a bit like, well, how can I get to sleep better? So, and it really talks you through like sleep routines and stuff like that as well. So I thought it was really good. I think I've said this before about when I talk about non-fiction books, I really do tend to give them 4 stars rather than 5 stars, unless I'm just like blown away, like clap, clap, clap. And I was blown away, but I'm always just like, with science and things like that, I always think there is still a bit of bias, even though you have studies to prove. There's always like other studies out there disproving, and because I have read the reviews about this, there are some people that are a bit like, he completely ignores this study that says this, or he completely like sort of has, I don't want to say warped with the results, but interpreted the results to be in his favour. So, you know, I always believe in balance, and I believe 4 stars strikes that balance when it comes to non-fiction. But I really did enjoy this. I'd like to read more books on sleep, but I don't get too obsessed. I feel like once I've read one, I understand the premise, but it was a really good book. The next book I'm going to speak about is You're a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. So I picked this up in a shop by complete accident. I think I was buying some painting, some acrylic paint, and this book was like $2.99 or $3.99 in The Works. Is it The Works? Yes, it is The Works. It's because in England I feel like The Works has closed down. There used to be one in Camden where I lived, and in Scotland I see them quite a bit. But anyway, bought this, and this, I'm not gonna lie, this is the kind of self-help book that I don't really like, and I feel like once I read this I was just like, bin that goal, I can't be bothered with this anymore. I did actually end up giving this 3 stars, but this presents the typical sort of self-help book of like, I want to say like middle-class white American women who sort of do really well in their careers, and she's like a career coach, I think, and something like that, and then start telling you that you need to have positive thoughts and that's how you're going to get it. And it's like, are we forgetting all the other sort of things that have led you to achieve this goal, or are we just going to sit here and talk about the fact that you manifested it and that's how you got it? So that's kind of where I am with this kind of book. I'm a bit like, and I think there's a follow-on-ups, wow. Whew. I think there are loads of follow-ups to this book which specifically talk about like other topics. I mean, one's on money, but then this book touches on money. So I feel like if you've seen her books around and actually you want to read one of her books, I think this is the book you should get, because I think this encompasses a lot of what the other things say. She dives deeper into the topics in the other ones. But in all honesty, I will not be buying the other ones, so I cannot compare. But this is, I think, generally the one that's a bit more general. I guess the most accessible part of this book, and what makes it good, is the fact that this is split into 27 like bite-sized chapters. Is it 27? Yes, bite-sized chapters that are full of stories and inspiration, and sometimes like her advice and whatnot. And tackling different things. So actually in that way it makes it really easy to consume, and it's a really good format actually, because some self-help books can get so long. The problem I found with this, however, is actually some of those chapters could have just rolled into one, they're bite-sized, but actually if they're bite-sized to the point where actually the next chapter is also talking about the same thing, we might as well just roll it into one. It's not that hard for people to read, and actually you'd probably just have like 17 chapters. 17 chapters isn't too bad, but that was one of the things I found. A lot of them were quite samey, so I was just like, surely that belongs in the other paragraph. So I'll read you the back so you just know a little bit more about this, other than the fact that it's a self-help book, because it is just very general. It says, in this refreshing, entertaining how-to guide, best-selling author and world-traveling success coach Jen Sincero serves up 27 bite-sized chapters full of hilariously inspiring stories, sage advice, and easy exercises, helping you to identify and change the self-sabotaging beliefs and behaviors that stop you from getting what you want. Create a life you totally love and create it now. Make some damn money already, the kind you've never made before. So yeah, that's it. That's really the kind of book it is. The reason why, and I feel like I gave this book 3 stars, but I feel like for me it's really 2.5 stars. And I said this when I reviewed the book, is just because of one of the things she says in here about one of her friends who has like MS, and she was seeing a counsellor, and the counsellor told her that she should like practice giving away stuff in order to, I think it was like maybe reduce her anger about her illness or something like that. So her friend started like giving away all these gifts, and then like basically her MS was like cured or something, and then her friend has gone on to make a like worldwide, what, I don't even know what the term is. Her friend has a very successful worldwide business or blog about these gifts, and I was just like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know why she would lie. Like, you know, she wouldn't lie. That seems a bit silly, but I'm also a bit like, yeah, I'm not going to say any more on that. And then there's also the thing in here that lots of self-help books do, which is about the parking space thought. You know, if you go in somewhere and you're just like, there will be a parking space for me. You go in, you'll find a parking space. And I'm like, yes, positive thinking is great. But the parking space thing depends on so many other factors. I don't think you just need to will it and it will be there. So you can see that I am a bit skeptic about some of these things. I find stuff like that very irritating, and I'm just a bit like, that's not how it happens for the majority, so give us some real advice. So that's my thoughts on the book. And yeah, I honestly feel like after I finished reading this book, I was like, I'm done with the self-help crap. I can't do this anymore. So the next book that I read was Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. I think the full title is The Small Changes That Change Everything. And I'll read you what this is about, because actually this took me forever to finish. I specifically remember in my head like being on the bus on the way home from work and trying to get through this, and it was really tough, and then like I stopped for ages, and then I think I even spoke about it in a video about like DNFing and stuff like that, but then I continued reading it and I really liked it, so I was really glad that I did. But I'll read to you what it's about. It says here, the world's leading expert on habit formation shows how you can have a happier, healthier life by starting small. When it comes to change, tiny is mighty. Start with 2 push-ups a day, not a 2-hour workout, or 5 deep breaths each morning rather than an hour of meditation. In Tiny Habits, BJ Fogg brings the experience coaching more than 40,000 people to help you lose weight, de-stress, sleep better, or achieve any of your goals. You just need Fogg's behavior formula. Make it easy, make it fit your life, and make it rewarding. Whenever you get in your car, take 1 yoga breath. Smile. Whenever you get in bed, turn off your phone. Give yourself a high five. Change can be easy once it starts. It grows. Let BJ Fogg show you exactly how. I really ended up liking this. So the bit where it says here about helping people to lose weight, de-stress, sleep better, or achieve goals of your choice, I find it really weird that it says that, because obviously it does focus on goal settings, and actually those are probably going to be the goals that a lot of people have, but it doesn't specifically focus on the goals. He just talks about forming tiny habits. So whatever those habits you want it to be, though, like, he gives you the sort of steps and the formula for that. I actually think it was really insightful, and I've read a couple of books that talk about sort of starting small habits, but I feel like he really broke it down really well and really covered a variety of scenarios that even if you were like, well, that's not going to work for me, flip to the next chapter, he's talking about what will work for you. So I did find it really good. I gave it 4 stars because obviously I've not like done any of the habits at the time. Obviously, like, I hadn't put any of the habits into practice or any of the formulas into practice, so I was like, can't give this 5 stars because I don't know if it works, and since then I've not done anything with it. But I would like to reread it because I actually did find it really insightful. Like, I found it really refreshing from a lot of other self-help books that I found. I think there's that book Atomic Habits, is it that? I've never read it. But I think they all, on these books that talk about habits, I'm sure I've read something else similar, all talk about this sort of focusing on really small goals. And I think that's really important to like start small. And you know, when he talks about the rewarding yourself for something else, but obviously it's not like if you do 2 push-ups, reward yourself with a cake. If your goal is to lose weight, then it's like, don't set yourself such random reward, but make them proportional to what like you're wanting to achieve. Oh my god, he covers so many things. Like, I just think he did a really great job. I think he did a really good job of just covering so many aspects, so many things, so many conditions, like even when things go wrong. So like if you set yourself a goal and the reward isn't something that's really working for you, about changing that. I'm not just like writing it off completely. I honestly found it really insightful, but I need to reread it, so hopefully I can do that this year and really work on putting some of those like formulas into practice. But yes, a good book that I would definitely recommend. It's just such a shame that it took me a long time to get through in the beginning, because I just really remember feeling very like, oh, I do not want to read this book. But in the end, it was great. So the other book that I listened to, and this is a book that I have read several times before, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I gave this 3 stars, and I think this is mainly because of the audiobook format. I could be wrong. It could just be that I'm way over the lessons it taught me and I'm just like, this is a bunch of bullshit. But yes, this was the book that I was talking about in the beginning, that I was just like, I guess you consider that self-help, because it's more, yeah, it's a book about finding like your treasure, your purpose and your journey and things like that, and talking about, yeah, basically don't go looking too far for your treasure and things like that, and to appreciate what's in front of you and to appreciate your journey. I don't know why, just in the past when I've read it, I found it really insightful and I found it really touching, but I was listening to it and I felt like the narrator for the audiobook wasn't really great. I found the main character a bit annoying, if I'm honest. How he like sort of treated people, I found that a bit annoying. So yeah, this time around it wasn't the read that it has been for me in the past. So yes, I ended up giving that 3 stars. The final book that I'm going to speak about is a book that I brought home from London and I went back, and that is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. So I think the first time I read this, I gave this 5 stars. This time around, I gave it 4 stars, and I actually really still enjoy the book. I knew I wanted to read that book because of how I feel. One thing I feel with self-help books is I feel like self-help books push the message that anyone can do anything, not anything, so anyone can do really great things. And you know, that probably is true, but it really gives the sense that, you know, if you push yourself and set all these goals, then like you will come out on top, and you know, the top is usually earning loads of money and stuff like that. Whereas Big Magic, sorry, I'm just thinking the subtitle, Big Magic very much takes that but also kind of inverts it and just says, you know, if you want to create things, so whether that be writing, painting, well, other creative things that people do, I don't know, like even doing things like YouTube, if you want to create that, you do not have to be great at it, you do not have to be the best at it. All you have to do is answer that call inside you that says to create. You do not have to have your paintings hanging in an art gallery. All you have to do is honor that feeling inside of you that says you want to create something. And I think that's the message a lot of us need, that actually whatever we produce doesn't need to be the best-selling thing or whatever. It just needs to be produced by you. Like, you just need to do it. And that's why I like that book. So I knew that's why I really wanted to go back to it. And it was exactly that. It still had those exact same messages. I wasn't remembering it wrong. It was still like a really brilliant read. And I think it just, I don't know, I think it just very much ignites like a fire inside me. But I think also for the majority of people that do read it and like it, because I have read reviews of people who don't like it, it does that. It doesn't tell you that you have to be the best. And I think that's really important. One of the things I really like is she talks about the fact that, you know, her best-selling novel, Eat, Pray, Love, you know, was a best-selling novel, but she's written like 5 other books after that that are not best-selling novels, and how actually the pressure to write a best-selling novel, if she had let that get to her, she wouldn't have been able to write at all. But the fact that she just wrote and produced those novels and published them, that's enough. Not everything is going to be a bestseller. You don't always have to top whatever you're doing. You can just create. And I think that's like a really important message. I gave it 4 stars because sometimes I was reading this and I was like, you're over egging it a bit. Just rein it in a little bit. And there's also a section in here which I'm surprised I didn't pick up on last time, where she talks about students who pay money for like creative writing courses, and I guess like professors who teach them. And she talks about the fact that she never did a creative writing course. You know, she worked and did all these other jobs and just wrote on the side. And she feels like, you know, students shouldn't have to go to creative writing courses and get saddled with debt. And I completely understand. Like, had she been talking about the topic she was talking about in a larger context of how, you know, we shouldn't be saddling students with loads of debt to get the career that they want. It would have been fine. But it sounded a bit weird coming from someone who has had a best-selling novel, and obviously your other 5 haven't been best-selling, but you had a huge one bestseller, and you're still going to be reaping the financial benefits of that for ages, even because it's been made into a film as well. Just saying to people like, don't go to creative writing school. I am not someone that will ever take a creative writing degree. I have no interest in doing that, so I don't know how it feels to someone who is interested in doing that or has done that. But she basically just says it's a waste of money and like they shouldn't do it, and if you want to write, go and do other things, and then like support your writing on the side and things like that. And I think the argument needed to be a bit more nuanced. Like the way she tackled it just wasn't great, and it just, because of who she is and like what she's achieved, you can't make that sort of statement and actually not have a real proper conversation about it, because it's all fine and dandy for you to say it because now you've made it. Would you be saying that if you were on the flip side and your stories weren't so popular? So it's one of those where it's just a bit like, I would have tackled that a little bit more, and I just didn't like the way she did it, and I have no interest in creative writing. And she talked about the fact that one of her friends is a professor at a school. She does this a lot. There's a lot of name dropping about all of her famous friends, but if you got it, you got it. But how he's a professor at a creative writing course, but was he a painter? I don't know which one of the friends it was, but he never studied creative writing. Like he just wrote, and because of his success, that was why he was able to then go and teach. But she finds it very weird that actually loads of students pay for someone to be taught by someone who wasn't taught, and it's just a bit like, okay, like I get it, but at the same time more nuance needs to be had to the conversation, because this is all being had at the same time of kids shouldn't go to creative writing course and get saddled with debt. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird because you can't really say she's coming from a privileged position, because the way she paints it, she was a bit of a struggling artist. How true that was, I don't know, but it's just little things that I picked up on. And yeah, she does really just over egg it. She's like, I made a commitment to myself at 15 that I said, whatever writing, like I would always support you. Whatever I have to do, I will always support you. And I was just like, did you really do that? I mean, if you did, fair play, awesome. But I'm just also a bit like, sounds like a bit made up. But other than that, I still really enjoy the book. Honestly, it's the one that I would recommend. When I went on Goodreads, people do not like this book, but I personally really enjoyed this book. I think it is the kind of sort of self-help book that I like, that doesn't really, like the You're a Badass book, focused on the, I would say, capitalist element, because what this book focuses on is, it's getting you to the top of your career, getting you more money, whereas this book is very much talking about like creativity, and just if you feel the need to make something, like you don't have to be the greatest at it. Like you can just have, like me, have a YouTube channel where you talk about books, but it's not like the most popular YouTube channel. And I think that's what's needed for just everyday creativity and everyday living, for people who aren't completely chasing that like 1 million bag. And I feel like a lot of self-help books do that. Like they just focus on that capitalist element, and you're just a bit like, okay, but I just want to do me and kind of be great and fulfilled in my life. But that is it for today's video, and that is it for the self-help books that I've read. Like I said, I will be reading some more self-help books this year. Just whether or not like I'll mark them on my Goodreads, and whether or not I talk about them on the channel is a different thing, but it depends on the self-help book, obviously. But yeah, there were a couple of like, I don't know, I'm not good at new releases of self-help books, but there are a couple of them that I do want to check out. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you have any self-help book recommendations that you have really liked, please leave them in the comment section below, because I am keen to read more self-help books. But I just, the new ones are just, I'm looking at them like, But yeah, if you have read any that really touched you, and you really think that I would like, I'd really appreciate any suggestions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll speak to you in another one. Bye.